Hey, everybody. I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is anchor. Anchor. Now, I've enjoyed all of these this week, especially, in the book of Hebrews so far. But today in Hebrews 6, I'm really enjoying this portion of it. The portion we're going to look at today. I love learning something new or seeing something from a different perspective than what I've seen before. And so that word anchor today. Now, I do want to notice, or want you to notice that picture, right? I mean, you Google, you know what I'm doing most of the time, just Google for the picture and try to find something. And it was amazing to me the number of pictures that you could find that was just the anchor and it wasn't tied to anything. It was just the anchor there on the shore or the anchor down at the bottom of the water. And I thought, well, it doesn't that make very little sense? I mean, what good is an anchor going to do if it's not tied, if you're not attached to it? So you think about it, if the purpose of the anchor is to hold the boat steady, to hold it in one place, to keep it from drifting away, then if the anchor didn't move, but the boat did, then it's the problem of the connection. And man, that's a lot of spiritual application just in that. So I want us to see today at the end of Hebrews chapter 6, there again, he's talking about the promises that God had made to Abraham and how, if we swear about anything, in other words, if he said, I swear I'm going to do this, so help me God. He says, well, look, Abraham heard the same thing from God, but God basically swore an oath with himself. In other words, saying, I'm going to fulfill it. And if you need me to have an oath for that, then I'll tell you my character, the character of God is the promise. So that kind of sets the background. As always, I encourage you to read it all. But we're going to just look at verses 17 through 20 today of Hebrews chapter 6. Thus, God, determining to show more abundantly to the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that two immutable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold of the hope set before us. This hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which enters the presence behind the veil, where the forerunner has entered for us, even Jesus, having become high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, the portion that I learned a little bit in some research was that, the way that the first century and then second century and early times, how they used the anchors. So these larger ships would put out a smaller ship and a small little boat. And so when they got close to the shore, they'd send the smaller boat in with the anchor and they would put the anchor on the shore so that it wouldn't drift away. And then it wouldn't also be sitting there getting beaten by the waves. But it was attached to the shore so it wouldn't drift away. Now, you think about that, go on to the kind of the second century in the Greek word there, they used a word that where we get forerunner, talking about the boat that would go ahead. That the forerunner, the boat would go ahead with the anchor and deposit it where it was going to be, and then you were attached to it. Now, the fact that the writer of Hebrews is saying, looking back, saying, look, God made this promise to Abraham and he did it in a double way, right? He says, I am who I am. And he is promising that I'm going to fulfill this, my part of the deal. And you have the character of God as my witness. That's what God was saying, right? You have my own character as my witness. Yet we have the same thing. We have the same thing. Those two immutable things that one, God cannot lie and he cannot go against his character. So in other words, his promises are true. And the fact that he cannot lie means that he's going to fulfill everything that he said. Now, just the same way that you saw it in the Old Testament and you saw it in times past, what the writer here is saying, he has done the same thing with Jesus Christ, the one who has gone behind the veil, the one who tore the veil, the one who has gone into the presence of God, the one who intercedes on our behalf, the one who, like that high priest that went into the presence of God, has now become the great high priest after the order of Melchizedek, and he has ascended into heaven, and he is in the presence of God the Father now, interceding on our behalf, like the priest. Now, this is the key. He says we have all this hope, right? We have this hope that the hope is tied to Jesus. And the hope in Jesus is now in heaven. He says that's what anchors us. In other words, if our faith and trust is in Jesus Christ, if we're that boat, we're tied to the anchor. That anchor has gone ahead to heaven, it's gone ahead to the shore. And yes, we will not drift away as long as we have been attached to the anchor. He says, this is the hope that we have, the hope of the heavenly promises, because we know God cannot lie. And when we think about the promises and the things that we're going to enjoy, those eternal blessings that we're going to enjoy, he says that is what even anchors our soul even here on earth. This is when you realize that there's absolutely nothing that this earth has to offer that can compare with the glory that we will receive in heaven. That hope is hope that has to anchor you while you're here on earth. So I would just really ask you two things today. One, is Jesus Christ your anchor? And the second part of that is, because he can't be your anchor unless you're attached. So are you tied to the Savior? And is that where you're finding your hope today? God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.